getting started, how many of you throw these things on, or throw them on mats the majority of the time you fish? I think these days most guys do. For those of you that really don't key on open water fishing with frog, I think you're missing the boat. Open water fishing with a frog is probably the most effective way to fish the frog these days. Mats are getting pounded out there here on the Delta, even in Clear Lake. The matted vegetation up there is getting pounded with frogs, and yeah, you can still catch fish out from under them. But for days where you're going to catch the majority, a lot of fish, numbers of fish, as well as quality, you're probably going to want to start targeting open water with the frog. And a lot of guys will ask, well, why a frog in open water? Why can't I throw a Czar spook, and walk it? I think everybody's heard of walking the frog, walking the dog with a frog like a Czar spook, and that's really the effective way to fish it. So guys are asking, well, why can't I throw a Czar spook, in open water? Well, you can, but the difference is, I think there's a lot of differences actually. With a frog, you still have a natural profile. You have a profile of a bait of a frog that there's no hooks hanging off of it. Yeah, there's hooks there, but they're kind of molded into the body, so the outline itself is real natural. Czar spook, you got 3 sets of treble hooks hanging down. I've never seen a fish with anything hanging off it like that. So it's very natural. The other advantage is when I'm talking about open water, I'm still talking about heavy cover. So I'm just talking about no mats, no matted vegetation. So in other words, I'm still pitching behind trees. I'm still pitching over and behind docks. You can't do that with a Czar spook. With a frog, you can. And if you don't get bit, you can pull a frog back, and you're not going to get hung up. So that's the advantage to throwing a frog. You can throw it so many more places than you can any other topwater lure that's out there. It's just amazing. And so to me, when you're talking about open water, fishing, if you're talking about topwater fishing in open water, I think the frog's probably one of the most effective topwater baits there is. You can put it so many more places than you can any other type of bait. So starting out, what I'll do is I'll talk about tackle, and I know a lot of guys. How many guys use flipping sticks for frogs? Okay. How many guys use smaller rods for frogs? 6.5, 7 foot rods? Anybody? Okay. I think a lot of guys use too much rod for frog fishing. Now you want a stiff rod, but you don't want overkill. And I think the reason that most guys use flipping sticks is because they're fishing mats, and to them, they got to drag that fish out of heavy cover. They got to use all the power they can to get that fish out. And it's true, you do need that. You do need it on mats. But when you're talking about open water frog fishing, what I like to do is I like to downsize just a little bit. I'll go to a 7 foot rod. Lemon Glass has come out with a new frog rod, which is 7 foot 2 inches, which I think is going to be an awesome rod. It's got the same action as the rod that I have been using, only it's about 2 inches longer. Gives you a little bit more leverage, and I believe it's got a better handle on it as far as for fighting fish and for pitching. So it's going to be an awesome rod, and they have it inside. You might want to check it out. Gene's got it inside. But what I'll do is I downsized to about a 7 foot rod, 7 foot 2 inches, like the new rod that Lemon Glass has. It's still a medium heavy action rod. This is a 5 power rod, not a 6 power rod like the flipping stick is, or a 7 power rod. And the reason I want that tip is because the little bit more tip is it makes a difference when you're, number one, when you're pitching for accuracy, especially in tight places, and number two, when you're walking the frog. Okay, a lot of guys will get out there and they have a real hard time walking the frog. They'll be working it, and it'll just keep coming straight towards them, and every once in a while they may get it to turn. But I wish I had a place here to really show you guys the walk of the frog and what I use. But the most effective way to walk that frog is to get that thing to just swing from side to side as you're twitching it. And you're twitching it so subtly that it's moving forward probably about 2 to 4 inches at the most with each twitch that you give it. So it's staying in the strike zone a lot longer. And that's the advantage to walking the frog rather than moving it straight or twitching it long distances in open water. It's similar to fishing a Czar spook. For those of you that are familiar with fishing a Czar spook, it's similar to that, but it's different in that you're using braided line. And with each twitch, it's got to be like a subtle snap, and there's got to be just a little bit of slack in line in order to really get that frog to walk effectively. And it takes a lot of practice to do it, but once you get it down, it's the best way to fish the frog. It's the most awesome way to track strides. But getting back to the tackle, what I'm going to do is I'm using that medium heavy 7 foot rod, about a 7 foot rod. I put a fluker reel on there, and I crank the drag down. There's no drag on this reel, none to very little. Very little. And about the only time that drag is going to slip is on my hook set. When I set the hook, I'll feel that drag slip just a little bit. If it slips too much, then I got to tighten it down some more. But it'll slip just enough to absorb some of the impact, especially with the braided line. But it'll be locked down hard enough where you're going to bury those hooks in the fish. And then I'll put this is Power Pro braid. I always use braid, and it's 65 to 80 pound braid all the time, and even in open water. Then what I'll do when I'm rigging that frog up is I will take a marker, a black marker, and I'll mark about the first 5 to 7 feet of the line, and I'll have to do that several times throughout the day, because when you're fishing it in any type of water, whether it's matted or open water, that ink will eventually wear off the line. So several times a day, I'll just pick up that marker and touch it up just a little bit and throw it back out there. And I believe it makes a big difference marking the line. I think you get a lot more strikes that way than if you just left it right like it is when it bleaches out, like you can see here. So that's how I'll start off putting things together for that frog. Now, when I go out, typically most people that fish this frog will start fishing this in the summertime. And I think they're missing the boat on a lot of fish. I'll start fishing this bait probably late in February, and I'll fish it out through basically Thanksgiving, when the weather starts turning cold again. And as the fish move up, this thing is real effective when they start moving up and they start looking for spawning areas, or they start their pre-spawn mode, they start feeding to look for spawning areas. Again, this bait really starts to turn on for it. And I think one of the biggest advantages, or one of the biggest things that this bait gives you is during the springtime, during the spawn, this bait attracts the females more so than the buck bass. When they're moving up on beds, it's amazing to me. We started throwing this thing up at Clear Lake, and it was myself and 2 other people, Mark Risk and Charlie Outmassey. We were pretty much the first ones to start throwing this. And it was amazing to us. We'd go down a bank and you'd see fish on bed. You'd see a couple of fish kind of rolling over themselves on the bed, and usually you can't get those fish's attention. Those fish are busy doing what they're doing. And the first time we ever threw a frog over them and started walking that frog out, all of a sudden one fish would leave, and we think, oh, we spooked it. And you'd see the other one stand there. It was usually the male that stayed in the bed. We figured we'd spook the female off, and they'd go back up and start rolling around again. So you keep working that bait, and that bait would get about 10 feet away from that bed, and all of a sudden this female would just charge it right from underneath. Just charge it, just either engulf it or just slap, come up, roll, slap it with her tail or whatever. She hated that thing being there. It was the most amazing thing we'd ever seen. We thought it was a fluke the first time we had done it. We kept going, found another bed, did the same thing, had another fish roll on, about a 7.5 pounder, got her in the boat, went down the bank, found another bed, did the same thing, got another fish, about a 6.5 pounder came up and ate it. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. But in every case, the male stayed on the bed. The male did not come off the bed. So during the springtime, you're really hedging your bets on bigger fish by throwing this in bedding areas. Going down the bank, targeting bedding areas, open water, throw that bait out and just walk it. Wherever you think you don't have to see the bed. Just if you think there's a bed there, walk it. There's a couple other advantages to that. What you'll do is you go through, you'll throw it up there and start walking it out, and these fish will come up and they'll either eat it or they'll roll on it. If they roll on it, they pretty much give their location away. So you can always come back later on. You can come back half hour later, hour later, whatever the case may be, and you'll either find that fish on the bed and you can work it, or you can throw the frog back over and she may eat it at that time. But if you're not fishing it early in the year like that, you're missing out on some big fish action. Getting into the summertime, which is what we have now here on the Delta, especially, we got the frog tournament coming up, and I really believe that this frog tournament is going to be one probably fishing this in open water, not fishing it on mats. Not fishing on mats at all. The last few times I should say that I've been out in the last few weeks, pretty much everything I've caught, with the exception of 2 fish, have come from open water, not from mats. And they've pretty much come off islands that have a little bit deeper water nearby them, with some of the weed floats that I was talking about, some of the sparse weeds that still have water on them at low tide. So this time of year, I think generally guys are really whipping the mats into a froth. They're really beating them up and finding cracks all over them. I think if you stay away from the mats for the most part, unless you have an area that's just loaded with fish, which there could be out there under a mat, but unless you have that kind of area, I really think that open water is going to be the ticket to winning the snag food tournament out here. And I'm talking about throwing, again, open water, throwing around docks, throwing around weeds, sparse weeds, Like I say, most of the fish I've been catching have been coming off islands with deeper water. So I think that's really where it's going to come from. Everybody here's fish frogs. How many of you guys have problems getting in the boat? How many out of 10 fish? How many fish do you guys land?
Not many.
3 out of 10. Okay. All right. I've gotten, and it's true. I mean, this frog, that's the problem. A lot of people shy away from this frog because they think that it's just not a high percentage bait. You can hook fish, but you lose a ton of them. I've got to the point where I can really, I feel confident in telling you that I can get 8 or 9 out of every 10 fish that eat this thing into the boat. Now, I'm not saying, and when a fish blows up on the bait and just doesn't take it down, I'm not including that. I'm talking about hooked fish. If you hook a fish, how many times can you get in the boat? Most guys, it's about 50%. 5 out of 10 that you actually hook, you'll get in the boat. They'll come up, jump, or pull off, whatever the case may be. Again, we've done a lot of practice with this. Me and a couple other friends of mine, and the ones I've mentioned earlier, Charlie Almassi and Mark Risk, and we've got to the point where we can get about 9 out of every 10 fish in the boat that actually eat this bait. And there's a couple keys to it. Number one is the tackle, obviously. But number two is when you're working that bait, it's real critical that you don't set right away. If you get that bait out there and you're working it, and the fish comes up and rolls on it, really what you want to do is pause. You want to make sure the fish has the bait, as with any topwater bait, but then you want to pause and make sure that the fish has the bait in its mouth as it's swimming away. Sometimes you can tell, sometimes you can't. In the Everstart tournament, which was out here beginning of June, pretty much every fish that came up and ate that bait I saw coming to get it. The water was that clear, so when they ate the bait, I knew whether they had the bait or not. A lot of times when the water's murky, you can't tell. So there's a couple things I'll do. Instead of swinging away, I'll be working, and this goes back to color. This is why I like to use white, to your question, because I can see the frog. I don't really care what the fish thinks about the color. I want to be able to see the frog, and there's a couple reasons for that. I'm working this bait, and you get a fish come up and blow up on it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stop and I'm going to look to see. I'm going to look for the bait. If I can't see the bait, then chances are the fish has it. Okay. Then what I'm going to do after I look for the bait, if I don't see it, I'm going to look at where the line enters the water, and if that line's moving, I know the fish has the bait, and then I can set the hook. Okay, if the line's not moving, the fish could have just rolled over it, and it could have just sank the bait. And then at that point, there's a couple of things you can do. You either reel in and throw it back out, or you can just start twitching a little bit, try to get some movement out of it, see if it pops back up to the surface. Generally, these things, when the fish sinks it, they won't, but you can try it and see what happens. But the key is to make sure the fish has the bait before you swing away. And that does a couple of things. Number one, it makes sure that the fish has the bait. If they don't have the bait, it enables you to start working the bait again to see if that fish will come back and eat it. Because a lot of times once you pull that bait away and throw it back out there, they won't touch it. Because the bait's already pretty much looked unnatural by scooting away and then all of a sudden landing back on top of it. So what I like to do is if the fish doesn't have it, I'll pause. If the bait's still there, I'll twitch it a couple more times so it looks like maybe that fish just injured it and will start moving again, and that fish a lot of times will come back and hit it again. So now the fish comes up and blows up on it, and it has the bait. Okay, the bait. I look for the bait. I don't see it. My line starts moving away. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to point the rod down wherever that line's moving towards. I'm going to try to follow that line where it enters the water, reel up the slack, and I'm going to set the hook. Okay. The mistake I see a lot of guys do when they set the hook is they set the hook straight up and towards the face. And that's great because all the power in your body is right here. It's in the center of your chest. It's the center mass, and that's where you're going to get the strongest hook set. But the problem with doing this is you limit yourself. When a fish grabs that bait and starts moving off with it, it's creating slack in your line. You're not always going to be able to pull up all that slack. Now, a perfect example is, for instance, during the spawn. When these fish come up and eat a bait, when they grab it off the bank, they typically don't move down the bank either way. They typically come straight out away from the bed with it. Well, that's creating a lot of slack in your line. By the time you reel up and set the hook, there's even more slack because that fish is coming towards you. So what I like to do is, again, I'll look at that line moving, I'll reel down, and when I set the hook, instead of setting it straight towards me, I'm going to sweep set and I'm going to set to the side. This is going to do a couple of things. Number one, it gives you a lot further range because you can twist your body. It's not stopping with you. You can twist your body and get a lot of leverage into it. You can set that hook and start cranking and take all that slack out of the line. And then the other thing that does, it gives you control over the fish right away. If the fish is moving sideways and you set up like this and that fish is moving that way, all of a sudden you've got to start moving your rod to get back at that fish. If you set to the side immediately, right from the get-go, you're pretty much going to set in the opposite direction that the fish is moving. So If I were to pitch out and all of a sudden the fish blows up and it starts moving that way and I reel up, I'm going to set this way. Okay, that way I have a complete opposite direction. I get maximum pressure on that fish immediately, take as much slack as I can out of it right away, and I'm going to have control over that fish as soon as I get the hooks in. If it starts moving the other way, I'm setting this way. So that's the key to getting a good hook in that fish, is waiting, making sure the fish has the bait, and then do a sweep set. Don't ever set straight up towards you, unless there's your partner standing next to you, or you're in some tight cover and there's a dock next to you or something that you can't sweep. Then it might be a different story. But always sweep set on that fish because you get a lot more leverage. Now the other key is once you get a hook in the fish, don't let up on it. I've seen too many people start playing the fish. Oh, this is a big fish. Pulling, they get to it. Don't. You got 65-pound braid on. You got your drag crank down. You got heavy rod. When you get a hook in that fish, just start cranking for everything you're worth. And I don't care if that fish weighs 2 pounds or 10 pounds. Don't let up. Just keep cranking and keep pulling on that fish. Keep that fish coming to the boat. So if that fish head is pointed towards you, chances are you're going to get that fish in the boat. And make sure your partner knows. If you get that fish to the side of the boat, he needs to scoop that fish up. I don't care how green it is. I don't care how much it's shaking its head. He needs to get that fish in the net. Because the longer that fish is on this bait, the more chance you have of that fish coming on. And the reason you want to keep that fish's head coming towards you is because of how rigid the hook is in this bait. You've all seen the hooks in this bait. They're pretty rigid. There's a long shank on it. Okay, fish comes up and engulfs that bait. You set the hook, and most of the time, majority of the time, the hooks are going to penetrate the nose, the top of the mouth of the fish. Okay, so you're going to have that fish coming towards you. As long as you got that fish coming towards you, those hook points are pointed at you. They got that fish securely. It's a big fish and you let up on it and that fish turns away like this, all of a sudden you got line coming across the back of the fish and it'll pivot those hooks right out of the top of the mouth, right out of the roof of the mouth. The roof of the mouth, especially the way these fish eat it, is the hardest part of that fish. So if the hooks aren't penetrated solid, there's a real good chance that those hooks are going to rotate right out of the fish's mouth. As soon as that fish comes up and shakes its head, you can kiss it goodbye. The frog's going to be flying over your shoulder and the fish will be going the other way. So again, get the hooks in the fish and just start cranking for everything you're worth. Get that fish to the boat. Do not let it turn. And the perfect example of that is the last time I went out, I took a friend of mine out. His name is Tom Stater. Some of you might know him. And we fished all day. We were fishing. We wanted to learn to fish the frog, so we went out there and we just threw it all day. That's all we threw. We only caught about 7 fish. The last fish of the day was weighed 9 pounds, about 9 pounds 2 ounces, and we did exactly that. We did everything right. Set the hook, start cranking for everything it was worth. Tom scooped the fish up. We got it in the boat. As soon as I put the rod tip down, the frog popped right out of the fish's mouth. So the hook points weren't even penetrating. So as long as you got that fish coming, the chances are you're going to get that fish in the boat. And that is the key for landing fish with the frog. So that is the ultimate key. So you will, and if you do it and you do it right, I guarantee you'll go from 3 out of 10 to 6, 7 out of 10, maybe even 9 out of 10. I mean, this bait, you can land a lot of fish on this bait as long as you execute effectively once that fish actually gets that bait.
Now, when you're fishing open water, do you bend those hooks out a little bit more because you're not fishing overmatch?
Good question. I do not. I don't do anything with the hooks. Matter of fact, up until this year, I never even changed the hooks on my frog. Once I got it, I took it out of the package, took a file of the points, and just started throwing it. And I had no problems. I was catching plenty of fish, and my landing ratio was great. I didn't think there were any problems with it at all. Last year actually, some guys started using the wide gap Gamakatsus. They started replacing them. And guys that were catching 5 out of 10 fish, all of a sudden started landing 7 out of 10 fish with these hooks. So I figured, okay, if it's working for them, then it'll probably benefit me if I change them. So now I change the hooks on these all the time. And I learned again, every time you go out and you fish, even if it's something that you have a lot of confidence in and it's your strength, you should learn something every time you go out and fish. And the Ever Start tournament was a huge learning experience for me. I did well in the tournament, and I had big fish the first day, just barely missed the cut, but it was a huge learning experience for me in the fact that in pre-fish I was fishing a frog in an area where I found some fish, and I had a terrible day. I lost I lost 7 fish in about a 300-yard stretch on frogs. I mean, I lost them. And I've always considered myself real good at getting a number of fish in the boat once they were on. So I switched out the hooks, and I switched my line a little bit too. I was using a little bit lighter line, so I switched up to a little bit heavier line, 65-pound test, and I switched out the hooks to the Gamakatsus, and I never lost a fish in the Everstar tournament. So you know, you learn a lot from it, and my recommendation is that you really don't have to do anything with the hooks. If you want to use the hooks that come in the frog in the package, you can. There's nothing wrong with them. My recommendation would be to trade them out for the Gamakatsu wide gap hooks, because I really think they give you an advantage, and you know, they take a bigger bite and they hold real well in those fish. And they're sharp right out of the package. You may not even need to touch them up. But yeah, hooks, I don't mess with them. I'm asked a lot, what kind of modifications do you do to your frogs? And I really don't do anything. When I pull it out of the package, there's a couple things I'll look for. First thing I'll do is I'll hold it up and I'll make sure the tails are straight. Some guys like to play tricks and pull tails out of my frogs on me.
I didn't do that.
But I'll hold them up, make sure they're straight. If one's longer than the other, I'll just take scissors and I'll just cut them until they're even. I don't shorten them, I just even them out. A lot of guys will pull strands out of tails. I don't do it. Don't think you need to. A couple of problems with that I see is because I fish open water a lot. The more strands you pull out, the less waterproof it is. It takes on water a little bit quicker, and I don't want it to do that. I want it to be nice and buoyant when it's in open water, when it's sitting on top of the water. Hooks, like I said, I sharpen them or replace them with the Gamakatsu. It's really easy to do. Take a paper clip, bend it. You pull the old one out, take the loop off of it, thread the loop on the new Gamakatsu, stick the paper clip through there, put the loop on the bent end, and just pull it right through and you're ready. It's a matter of seconds, and you can change every hook on every frog you have. As far as inside, the frogs generally come with little steel balls that are in there, little steel beads. I think there's 2 of them in each frog. I may add a third, maybe a fourth, so you get a little bit more noise out of it, but that's it. That's all I'll do. I don't do any other modifications to the frog. With the exception of one. We've been talking about the last couple of days. When you buy frogs off the wall, some of them are real soft, some of them are real hard. And the softer the frog is, the better, obviously. For us and for the manufacturer. The softer it is, the easier it gets stored up, so you got to buy more. But the softer it is, the better hook set you're going to get on a fish. It's been a problem that some of the hard ones, you may buy 20 frogs and 10 of them may be pretty darn hard. And what do you do with them? Well, there's a way to soften them up. You got to be real careful with it, but there's a way to soften them up. Pull everything out of them. Pull the hooks out of them. Pull the beads out of them. Take a little bowl of water, just deep enough that the frog floats in it. Stick it in the microwave and bring it to a boil. Throw the frog in that bowl and microwave it for 2 minutes, no longer. 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, no longer. Just make sure it's in boiling water. Pull it out, throw it on a paper towel, let it cool off. I guarantee you the consistency of your frog is going to be softer than it was when you put it in there. Now, if you need to do it again to soften it up even more, you can. But I would recommend not doing it any longer than 2 minutes, otherwise, obviously, the stuff starts to melt. And you got to take the hooks out, because the hooks will heat up and it'll start melting holes in the sides of your frogs as well. But that's a good way to really save a frog. If it's too hard, you don't like it, instead of throwing it away, giving it to a friend that won't appreciate you because he never catches anything on it or whatever, throw it in the microwave, boil it for 2 minutes, take it out, let it soften up. If you need to do it again until it's the consistency you want. And it works really well. It works really well. So just a little trick to kind of help you out with some of your frogs when you buy them. Any other questions regarding frogs at all? Nothing? Okay. It's pretty basic fishing. I like to keep it simple. Not a lot of modifications. Right tackle, throw it in the right places, walk it, and you're going to catch a lot of fish. Catch a lot of fish on it.